What's going on, guys? My name is Nick, and welcome back to the channel, and I just got out of seeing M. Night Shyamalan's new film, Knock at the Cabin, so let's talk about it. First thing I want to mention is Dave Bautista is amazing in this film. This is easily the best role I've ever seen him in, and he's been in a lot of movies. He's been in Dune, Blade Runner 2049, of course, many of the Marvel films, and this is by far the best performance he's ever given, mainly because this is the best written character he's ever gotten. There are a lot of layers to his character, more so than any of the actual main characters in the film, and I think that's where my first complaint for the movie comes in, is that these main characters, these leads, I just didn't really feel anything for them. And that's crazy because coming from a gay male, you would think that I'd be able to relate to their view of the world specifically, but I couldn't. By far the most compelling aspect of this film was watching the four horsemen-like figures of the apocalypse, if you will, kind of question if what they're doing is actually real, if they are just losing their mind and they're just doing the wrong thing. And that's an element to the movie that I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a lot of flashbacks. I was expecting a lot of this movie to take place in the past, and it would be between the relationship of our two leads, but that's not really what happened. Most of the movie takes place in the cabin, and a lot of it is conversations, but the conversations are never really compelling. M. Night tries to give backstories to these four horsemen, and they try to get us to sympathize with them, so when their ultimate demise does happen, it's not compelling, and it's not emotionally effective in the way that it should be. Like, I'm okay with Rupert Grint's character not being as easy to sympathize with, because that's just who his character was. He represented a specific person in the world, and that's okay. But everyone else, the other three, all have very, how do I put it, easy things that you would sympathize with as a viewer, right? You know, one of the characters has a child, one of them is a doctor that cares for and saves a lot of people. The other one, Dave Bautista's character, is an elementary school teacher, right? He nurtures and raises the youth. So these are all elements that go into creating a easy to sympathize with character, but it just never came across the way that I think they wanted it to. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you guys walked out of this movie in tears and you actually felt something, but I didn't. And that's my biggest struggle with M. Night movies as of late. There's just never anything that is really emotionally drawing for me, right? And when I go to a film, I want an experience. I want the film to give me some sort of emotional experience, whether that may be happy, sad, just, you know, an hour and 40 minutes of straight laughter. I want some sort of an experience. This is probably not the best example to give, but in 80 for Brady last night, I was consistently laughing and smiling throughout the entire movie. That movie made me feel happy while watching it. But during Knock at the Cabin, I couldn't care about anything that was happening on screen. If the little girl was the one that died at the end of the movie, I wouldn't have cared. Now, outside of the subpar writing, there are some really, really good shots in here. The cinematography is very well done, especially at the very beginning when they start to break into the actual cabin. There are some really good shots, specifically of Rupert Grint's character. You've seen it in the trailer a little bit. And the way M. Night chooses to direct our characters, particularly when they're having scenes of dialogue, right? The framing of our characters' faces, it's so tight on their face, and they're centered, and it just cuts between each character of that same shot setup, and it was very compelling at first. And I say at first because from that moment forward, every single time we would have a intense moment of dialogue exchange, that would be the type of shot he would go for. And I know M. Night is a better director than that. I know he has better, more creative shots in his back pocket. Hell, we even saw a few of them in this movie. The biggest thing for me was that I just didn't connect to any of these characters, and especially to these characters that you really think that I would particularly relate with. I just couldn't at all. And they tried to give some sort of backstory. They tried to give some sort of an emotional layer to these characters by flashing back. We see our lead couple first adopt Win, and we see them kind of have an altercation in a bar with a homophobe. They're trying to convey not only the way that the couple looks at the world, right, and how the world perceives them, but it's also trying to characterize this intimate bond that the two have, right? This unique form of love that they kind of try to explain in the movie as to why they were chosen to make this specific decision. And it just would have been a whole lot more interesting if they tried to dive into these themes, right? Shyamalan does this thing where he just has the thesis of the movie, right? And he works it into the film to where it's clear enough that any jackass can point it out, but he doesn't actually do anything to dive into the actual complexity of the issues or topics that he's trying to discuss in the movie. He hits the bare minimum points just to get to the end of this hour hour and 40 minutes. And I'm not asking for like levels of Tar writing, you know, that Todd Field put into that script, and the amount of complexity that's in Lydia Tarr's character. The theme specifically that you're trying to convey in this story, they're too big and too important to just skate over. And I mean, the film has a pace that is just like that. It, like, from the first shot, you see Dave Bautista approaching Wynn. Like, we are immediately thrown into this. So with the film that starts this fast and it is just continuously moving at this hyper-frenetic pace, you would assume that we'd get a little more work within the themes the movie's trying to convey, but we just don't. And because of that, by the end of the movie, the ending just does not really work. I understood why they went the route that they did with it, and hell, I think that the final scene, right, of two characters in a vehicle, it's the best written scene of the entire movie. There is an interaction between the two that shows more about how these characters feel and what they're going through mentally and emotionally than any other moment in the entire movie. And that's why it's my favorite scene of the movie, is that last shot. They could have had something really, really special here, other than just another, yep, it was an M. Night Shyamalan thriller, it was entertaining, and that was it. Because that's what Old was, right? That's what Old was. And that's... I guess what I can say is, thankfully, it's not The Last Airbender, it's not The Happening, it's not After Earth, but it's also not The Sixth Sense. Overall, it was entertaining to watch, but I don't think I would ever watch it again. And wow, it is crazy to say this, but I think I came out of this weekend of films liking 80 for Brady more. I'm gonna give Knock at the Cabin a 2.5 out of 5. There's so much missed opportunity here. It's too much to excuse. Hopefully next time M. Night will dive more into the actual writing and the messages that he's trying to convey with this film, rather than just playing out cool sequences that have no real emotional punch behind them. If you haven't read The Cabin at the End of the World, read the book, because there is a lot of differences between the book and the movie, and the book is definitely better. It poses much more interesting quarrels and dilemmas than the actual movie does. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's going to be it for me today. Next week, I believe Magic Mike's Last Dance comes out. I don't know if I'm going to see that. We'll see, though. We'll see. But thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean the world to me. Thank you so much for 170 subscribers. Like, you guys are crazy. You guys are killing it. Thank you so much. Take it easy. Be safe out there. Peace.